In a world where the pen is as visceral as the sword, one man's wordplay tradecraft is just as deadly. They call him the Punisher.
Wendell, I don't think we should do this. I don't know. I would imagine that everyone out there is getting sick of our puns, because I know I am. Well, I guess we should apologize for ruining the show in the first 10 seconds, but that's what we do here. We enjoy ruining the show, so yeah. So how'd you like...
The only way we can one-up ourselves is to have a one-liner that ruins the show.
I'll work on that. What'd you think of Taiwan? We'll talk about that for just a second, and then we'll jump into the show. I think we're both maybe slightly jet-lagged. I'm not sure how jet-lagged you are. You've had a couple extra days of recovery, because I stayed a few extra days to tour Lee and Lee's factory. But how you feeling, and how'd you like Taiwan?
I was fine the first couple of days, and then I made the mistake of taking a nap. And I was like, oh, it's fine, it's fine. Because it had been a couple of days. And no, it was not fine at all. It's very bad.
Yeah, that's exactly the same thing that happened to me. So I got home on the first day. It was great. I did the same thing you did. I didn't go to sleep on the plane. I read books and played Pixel Dungeon. But I sat there on the plane. I brought my laptop and didn't even open it because it's just too cramped and never to open. I was like, hey, I've got all these games on my laptop. I brought my Bluetooth controller in case I wanted to play some old school Nintendo games. Like I wanted to play Shadowrun on Super Nintendo. I did all that. Didn't do anything on the plane other than just read and stay awake. And then I got home.
Read and be miserable.
Yeah, I got home in the evening, and I was like, perfect. It's evening time. I'll go to bed. Woke up at 7 a.m. the next morning, like, la da 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 da. And then I'm notorious for taking 10-minute naps. I can take a 10-minute nap anytime, and it's fine. So I was like, it's midday. I'm going to take my 10-minute nap. So I went to bed at like 2, woke up at like 11 at night. And I was like, what is happening? And so then I was up till 4, and that's what's been happening. The last couple of days, I've been going to bed at 4, waking up at 7, going to bed at 2, waking up at 5. It's just like... I never get jet lag when I'm going to Asia, but on the way back from Asia, it's always like, I don't even know where I am. So that's pretty much how it's been going this week.
Yeah, I didn't have any jet lag when I was out there either. Like, I remember the first day that I was up at like 7 and everybody, you guys were fine, but the rest of our party was like, oh God, what is happening? This is torture. I don't know what's happening. I was like, it's 7 a.m., guys. It's fine. I'm not really even a morning person. But then coming back,
it's weird.
Oh, it was bad.
I'm always a morning person in Asia, so I guess if we want to get some stuff done, we'll have to get a morning home over there and have an evening home here. That's backwards. Anyway, they need to work on that technology so we can teleport and be in 2 places at once. So let's go ahead and talk about all the news that we've missed while we were gone. We'll start off with just this quick, fun news. Some Dutch guys have decided that they're going to take old oil tankers, at least they're proposing this is something they could do, and turn them into giant villages. Now, here's what's interesting. The walls of these old oil tankers are extremely enforced, and the inside of them is open enough that they could put some huge multi-level structures. You could have apartments there. You could have, it's already set up for running water in not like an apartment building, but it would be very simple to retrofit it. You could have shops and everything, and you know what? I bet you could even grow vegetables up on the top deck. But that's a pretty interesting use for old, discarded mega oil tankers. Some of those things are huge. They're bigger than a lot of small towns and stuff that you drive through in the South. Quite a bit bigger. So it's an interesting use and also an interesting way to create new, strange population centers. I just don't know if people could live on a giant boat like that. Some people would think it was cool, but I don't know. It just seems like they would be like, well, doesn't feel like home. It feels like an old oil tanker. I don't know. Maybe it would work, but
maybe that's because it is an old oil tanker.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I guess it's a cool use of something that would have normally just been discarded. So that's kind of cool. All right, let's get down to business and talk about the Oracle thing. I'm going to let you do most of the talking on this because you understand it a bit more than I do, but Google originally won a lawsuit where they were using some code made by Oracle, but it was the API code, the code that allows Google's programs to talk to other things. It's part of the API, part of Java, and Oracle was like, you know what, we can copyright that, and Google's like, no, you can't. They went to court. Google won. Oracle appealed, and now Oracle has won. So go ahead and I'll let you jump in and talk about the implications and what really happened here.
If you guys haven't been following this case, it's really interesting because the first version of this case, or the first iteration of this case, they got a judge who was willing to learn Java programming and who knew a little bit about computer science and a little bit about programming in general. And in that trial, the judge basically sided with Google and said, well, no, the programming APIs that are used in Android, because Android is based on the Java programming language, Google has basically implemented their own version of Java using the publicly published APIs of Java. Now, they're not using the source code of Java, except for maybe in one or two really small isolated instances in terms of like functional code that actually executes stuff. What Google has really done is just taking the programming API and written their own version that uses the same API, but that's for interoperability, so that people that develop programs for Oracle's Java, originally Sun's Java, would be able to run it just fine under Android, because Android's sort of language of choice, sort of the language that Google chose for that, is Java. And so on appeal, the Oracle, of course, appealed the ruling because the judge that actually knew computer science and programming was like, I don't think APIs are copyrightable. And it sort of messes with computer businesses and interoperability in general if APIs are, in fact, copyrightable, because historically, utilitarian code has not been copyrightable. The best example is like the phone book. You can't copyright the phone book because it's a list of names and numbers. It is factual, functional information. An API is really not dissimilar from that, in my opinion. And the first court case a few years ago sided with that. Well, then there was an appeal, and the really interesting thing here is the Department of Justice and the President's Office has weighed in and said, no, we think APIs ought to be copyrightable. We don't think that the Supreme Court should take up this case, because the appeals court sided with Oracle. And so it may be the case that the damages that Google will be liable for may only be $150,000 for code that was used in one range check function. But this still sets a dangerous precedent, and it's bad for American business. So I don't know why the Obama administration, which apparently doesn't know anything about programming or computer science, would want to side with Oracle, because there's all these amicus briefs from all these other technology companies and famous computer scientists saying it is a bad and dangerous idea to allow APIs to be copyrightable. And then there was this other article that came out that said, oh, Klingon, this ruling may anger the Klingons. And it's like, well, wait, what's meant by that? And it's like, well, Klingon is a made-up language, kind of like Esperanto or Elvish. And so because...
Does anybody out there know what Esperanto is? I want someone to respond to that in Esperanto if you do. Does anybody still speak that? I'm sorry. Go on with the Klingon thing. I won't jump in with that.
We're going to learn Esperanto, but it's so the functional constructs that allow one to exchange information with, say, Klingon, because it's an artificial language, would mean that somebody has a monopoly over the Klingon language, which is all things that could possibly be written in Klingon. And that's actually a really clever way to explain that. And I don't think it was explained. I don't think the super dream team attorneys on either side for Google or Oracle really put it to the judge that way in either court case. But that's a really sort of clever way. Now, it's an oversimplification in some regards, but it's like, no, Tolkien owns the Elvish language now, and the people from Star Trek own Klingon because it's a completely artificial language, and so that sort of shows how absurd it is, and we just thought it was funny and we thought we'd share. But hopefully the Supreme Court will take this up, because it is bad for business in America if APIs are in fact copyrightable.
All right, let's check out Squarespace. We've built our website with Squarespace. It's been incredibly easy. And the thing I like about Squarespace is the fact that it just puts the content forward and gets out of the way. There's not a lot of bubbly nonsense anywhere. Plenty of templates to choose from, and I know a lot of you guys want total control. There is Get Access. Just take a look at a couple of the different features here. There's the new cover pages. If you just need something, as a splash page or one page, you can use it for that, or you can use it as a cover page for your store or whatever. Really good for musicians. It allows you to integrate Bandcamp, or you can sell your stuff right on here, SoundCloud, whatever you want. About $8 a month, depending on your plan and what you guys are doing. And we do have some discount codes for the Tech Syndicate members. Just go to their website and use the promo code Tech Syndicate. You can click on the screen and get there just the same. Now back to the regularly scheduled tech. Speaking of things that are copyrightable, the entire patent and copyright system is completely ridiculous. Everything's out of control, and we have a huge problem with, patent trolls and that sort of thing. And I think a lot of the issue is not necessarily the patent trolls. These guys are bastards. They are bastards who have found a way to abuse the system and make money simply by being worthless leeches of society. But they're doing so with the help of copyright and patent officers somewhere in an office that are saying yes to their nonsense patents and granting them ridiculously broad patents with very little proof. Now, there is an interesting paper here from Lincoln Labs. It's very long. I read the entire thing. And it's just several ideas on how to fix the patent system, you know, and a lot of them are really good ideas. I think they could probably go even further with this. But the first thing you see when you read this, you get to see some of the hilarious nonsense patents. Like, did you guys know that someone holds a patent on exercising a cat with a laser pointer? So every time that you get out a laser pointer and shine it on the ground and, you know, the cat chases it, you are infringing on someone's intellectual property. So that's a complete nonsense patent. I can't even believe that someone said, oh yeah, this looks legit. That's how bad it is right now. Let's see if we can find there's more fun ones in here. There's some that are like beyond absurd. Like one company was sued because their software used lists, and some guy has a patent on names in a list. They looked at the patent. It simply is names in a list, and they were suing almost everyone on Android because they were using like if anyone was using, like, you know, if you have an app and it uses like any sort of listed names, you're infringing. And they were suing all these companies. They're settling out of court for $50,000 just so they can get on with their lives. But it's absolutely ridiculous. But I'm going to encourage you guys to go and read this. It's pretty long. Go ahead.
This was also happening with copiers. There were some patent trolls that were suing small and medium-sized businesses if they had configured their copier to send them an email, so that, like, you put something in like you're going to copy it, but instead of hitting the copy button, there's an email button. And if you had set up your copier to send you an email, that was infringing their patent, and so they wanted a payment. And rather than going after Canon or Lexmark or HP, they were saying, oh, well, those companies aren't actually violating the patent because they put the functionality in there. It's the end users who actually set that up. Because, you know, Lexmark doesn't also supply your email server, but your copier tied to your email server, we own that no matter who does whatever. And it was just such a convoluted mess of insanity that somebody in the Vermont government got wind of this because some people up there were sued, and they were like, it was the Attorney General's office, I think, and they were like, sending email from a copier? No, I'm sorry, that's not patentable, and if you think it is, I dare you to come after somebody in Vermont. But that patent troll was going so far as to incorporate troll companies in tiny, like they were franchising the patent rights in tiny, tiny slivers of America. So it would be like random 5-letter company name, and they were responsible for the patent in this tiny area of America. So it would make it very difficult for you to Google the company names that were threatening to sue you over owning the patent. And they didn't actually own the patent, they had just licensed it. So it was really, really shady stuff. And I'm really honestly surprised that, like, the Trial Lawyers Association of America or something didn't get involved and sort of shame the attorneys involved, because it's some Prenda level shenanigans going on, but with patents for sending email from a copier, which is ridiculous.
All right, I figured it out. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to be wealthy beyond our wildest dreams, and someone out there in the audience is going to be wealthy with us. Now, here's what we're going to do. Whoever has the most money, like whoever's watching it is a multimillionaire and feels like helping us sit down and file some patents. Let's do that. Let's have a few beers, have a few coffees, whatever you like to drink, and let's just sit down and make complete nonsense patents, like putting cotton between two pieces of sewn fabric for making pillows. Let's just make a bunch of patents that way and start suing people who've been doing this for years, which is what a lot of these companies do. They're like, you know what, someone thought of this 100 years ago, but nobody put a patent on it, so now it's our intellectual property. And so you can tell that the idiots at the USPTO are not doing their homework when it comes to prior art. So we can just take advantage of the entire situation, and, you know, we can also be good guys at the same time while we're being bad guys. We can use it as a way to show how screwed up the system is, and we can go on national television and be like, look how we took advantage of the little guy and made all this money with all these nonsense patents, and the system is broken, and now we're multi-gazillionaires. And then when someone like us does that, they'll be like, wait a minute, they can't do that, and then the system will change. I wouldn't want to do that because I wouldn't want to put any small people. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, the like the cat toy patent, I don't really mind the cat toy patent as long as the cat toy patent only covers that specific laser diode with that specific battery configuration in that specific housing with very, very little variability. I think that's fine, but it's like any use of a laser pointer to exercise a cat is like, I don't think that flies.
I think that's usually what they try to do. They try to patent the idea of something, you know, like Apple with their rectangles with rounded edges, Amazon with their whole idea of the one-click checkout. Like, really? Anyone who comes up with the idea of like you doing a one-click checkout, not the specific implementation of Amazon's one-click checkout, but if anybody else does it with any other implementation, no, we own that idea. That's absurd, and it's really harmful. It's the exact opposite of what the USPTO was set up to do. It was set up to help protect people who have true intellectual property, as well as nurturing an environment of I don't know. I don't even know where I'm going with that. Nurturing an environment of, what's the word? Innovation. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah, let's just move on. It's ridiculous. Oh, hey, the new OS 10 thing is out, or what, I don't even know. You sent this article over. It's the new, what's called like Yosemite something? Yosemite Sam, yeah. I just think
El Capitan.
Okay, so yeah, Capitan. There we go. Of course, it's got the picture of Capitan right there. So I'm going to call it Yosemite Sam Capitan, or Capitan Yosemite Sam. That's what I'll call it. Anyway, for no reason. The
other announcement stuff was like OS 9 and that kind of thing, and like the developer features that are coming to that. But it was basically
OS 9.
Let me sum it up for you. It's like, hey, we're Apple. For mobile.
iOS 9. Yeah, I was like OS 9. I was like, well, that was a pile of shit. What's that still doing around? Yeah, iOS 9
We're bringing
beta.
Finder to the iPhone. It's going to be great.
They're bringing a lot of brand new features that they have invented. Let's talk about all the features that they have invented. That one.
I was very happy that they didn't use any language like, Apple is the first to innovate in this, and they were like, hey, look, we got all this cool stuff. It was they've got window snapping now. I mean, sure, everybody on Mac uses spectacles, right, for window placement, because the Mac window placement has been retarded since like OS 7. So and now they've got the Windows style, move the window sort of into the upper right hand corner, and then it'll take up half your screen, and then move it into the upper left hand corner, and it'll take up half of your left hand screen. So yeah, Windows has had that since, I don't know, Windows 7. Windows Vista might have had it, I'm not sure, but that's been around in Windows for a while. They added in Safari, like the little tabs to show you which tab is making noise. They added an indicator for that. Although that indicator is at least twice as sexy as the indicator that's in Chrome. So, they've got that, I guess.
Well, I think it is really cool if they didn't actually claim to invent any of these things. I wonder how long until you're in a coffee shop and somebody in there starts claiming that Apple invented these things that have been around for years. I wonder how long it's going to be until that happens. That's what's going to happen.
There's a real problem that Apple has that with the App Store as far as like business development. Like, one of the untapped markets for Apple are business apps. And look, large companies, yeah, but small and medium businesses are what power the American economy. I mean, large companies, yeah, billions of dollars, blah, 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 paying the executives with solid gold bathtubs, whatever. But small and medium-sized businesses, in terms of like purchasing power and all the other shenanigans, it's small and medium-sized businesses. And there's a problem right now with Apple where they're not really talking about, and I keep looking for somebody to bring it up at the developer conference or somebody to blog about it or whatever. But if you're a small developer and you write applications, a lot of small businesses where, a small business might have 10 or 20 iPads, they'll have one account that's tied to all 20 of them. So you buy the app once, you can install it on all 20 iPads. And so for an application developer that's not an insanely huge application developer that is writing business apps, which on PC and on desktop has always been where the money is. It's not home applications, it's business applications. That's how you can actually make money as a software developer. You're not going to make money in the App Store unless they're signed up with like the business account plan for Apple. Now, there's a thing in the EULA that says that where Apple's like, you can only have one iPad per person unless the iPad is shared among a whole bunch of people, but you can't have 20 iPads that are used by 20 different people. That's against the terms of service. They don't actually enforce it. And so the reality is that if you're a developer and you're writing business applications, that you're basically screwed by Apple because you don't have any real way to enforce the terms of the EULA for your application. If somebody's going to have the same account on 20 iPads, they can install the application 20 times. There's nothing you can do. It used to be the case that it would limit it to 5, and so like your applications would shift around, but they turned that off because people complained, I guess. So it's a really weird situation, and I don't really understand why. I mean, it's been that way like the last 3 versions, and I always look for it to be addressed at these things, and it never has been. So I don't know. But there was a bunch of other features they added and other functionality that basically anybody not on the Apple platform has been enjoying for years, or has already been enjoying for years by using third-party software like Spectacles and Google Chrome in the Apple operating environment. So the other big thing is they added technology, an API for mobile Safari for ad blocking. And so I think that this is interesting, but I think it's interesting because I think Apple is doing this as a backhanded way to get content creators like us on their platform, because it's like, hey, you guys on iPhone, you're just going to turn the ads off. We're not going to make any money. We're going to go out of business. Nobody is going to do the tech support thing or fund us or support us with the support link on YouTube or whatever. And so that's going to be bad news. But if we use the new Apple Music service and the new Apple podcasting thing, and, you know, it's a subscription-based service, we can get a cut of that pie. And so this is sort of Apple's way of gently nudging us in that direction, I think.
Gently nudging. That's one way to put it. Speaking of things that are gentle, let's talk about censoring the internet. That's always fun. So we got something to talk about in Canada, and we got something to talk about in France, and there's tons of this going on in other parts of the world, but let's just start off with what's going on in Canada. So in Canada, a while back, they ruled that Google had to block certain websites that they said should be blocked or that were infringing or whatever. They had to block certain websites. So there are, I mean, the whole way that a lot of the courts in the world go about this is already backwards. You can see that their understanding is weird. Like, instead of attacking the actual website, sometimes they do it, but instead of like going after the website that they're angry with, they just tell Google to block it. You could still go and like type in the URL and get to this website, or you could still use a different search engine, but they decide to go after Google and be like, you have to block all this stuff. So Google is now playing police on the internet. And in Canada, they were blocking several, actually British Columbia, they were blocking several sites that ended in .ca or whatever. I mean, no, how's this work? They're blocking several sites, but only on their google.ca. That's how it works. So the courts got together and they're like, this is not good enough, because people can still get to it. And even here, they can either use a VPN or they can just go to google.com and they can still access the stuff that we want blocked. So in Canada, they decided that since Google exists in British Columbia, and when I say exists, I mean it has no offices, it has 0 servers, but people can go on their computers and get onto Google in British Columbia. So therefore it exists. Therefore, by that logic, any business exists in British Columbia. We are all British Columbians. All right, anyway, so by their logic, everything on the internet exists in British Columbia, and they have jurisdiction over it. They've told Google that since their service is available to them, their citizens, they have to block it globally. So whatever they say, Google has to block it globally. That's amazing. What is wrong with Canada? What is wrong with Canada right now?
It says the court goes on a long and winding road saying, sure, that this is a third party that has nothing to do with the party that actually broke the law, the third party being Google. But in this case, it's okay that we're enforcing a ruling against Google. And it's like, how does that work exactly? I mean, Google does have the power to take this down, but the root problem is that it's on the internet in the first place. So how does Google seems weird.
So it's also happening in France. Let's get the next article up here. So in France, they've had this, the whole right to be forgotten.
Right to be forgotten.
Yeah. So right now they're saying that it has to be global, because Google was, just appeasing them and saying, okay, listen, certain parts of Europe, those search terms are gone now. And France is like, well, no, we want it to be global, and we're going to give you 15 days before we exercise our ability to impose sanctions. So they're giving Google, I guess it's like 13 days at this point, to turn off whatever websites that France says should be turned off, because France doesn't like it. They want them to not be indexed on Google, even though France probably should be attacking the individual websites, whatever it is, Pirate Bay, whatever they want to get rid of. Instead of attacking them, they're telling Google just, don't index them and do it worldwide. And I don't even know like what Google is going to be able to do, because a lot of these countries and a lot of these governments and a lot of these courts are saying, yeah, Google, you got to block it globally. Sorry, that's just what you got to do. And what gives them jurisdiction over the entire internet? What's going to happen? Are we going to have ICANN jump in here? And do they have their own courts? Are they going to have to become a sovereign nation and get their own courts? I don't know. Like, I'm just not sure what we're going to be able to do, because if every country sees this, they're going to be like, well, we want to block stuff globally too. And America's going to be like, we need to block stuff globally because terrorism. And then Canada's going to be like, terrorism. And then Ireland's going to be like terrorism, and then the UK is going to be like pedophilia, and then somewhere else in Europe's going to be like terrorism, and then we're going to have a mess, and nothing. There's going to be zero internet because everything's going to be blocked by one country or another, and every country in the Middle East is going to block everything that they don't agree with. So there'll be no more. Never mind. It's going to be a mess. Where does it stop? And the precedents are already being set.
The particular case in question is apparently a 16-year-old German national was in America and committed some kind of a sex crime, and it was reported in America, but in Germany it would not have been. And so that's some of the types of cases. It's like, well, because it would not have been reported in Germany, we need to take down the search results from Google. And it's kind of interesting. I mean, Google has offices in Germany. They've got offices in a lot of parts of the world. But I'm not sure that Google offices in Germany are responsible for the actions of, Google in America. This kind of thing will only lead to the balkanization of the internet, which as a whole is a bad thing. I mean, I'm all for human rights and I'm all for the right to be forgotten, because, children are dumb and children will make mistakes. And if the internet had really been a prevalent thing, and or some of the really dumb things that I did when I was younger were on the internet, it would be bad. It would be very bad news. I could imagine that it would be not good for the mental well-being, the long-term mental well-being of many, many people. So I think the right to be forgotten is important, but at the same time, the balkanization of the internet would be worse. Like, if it came down to the balkanization of the internet, meaning that, countries have their own little private internets and it's a hassle to have this global information sharing thing versus my dumb thing that I did being on the internet, I would rather have the non-balkanization of the internet with my dumb thing on the internet versus the balkanization of the internet. Just at a 10,000-foot view. Now, you get into the fine details. And
I think a lot of people get just kind of... They just kind of drown in the fine details, and they never actually step back and take the broader perspective, the 10,000-foot view. We just experienced that, or at least I just experienced that. It was in China, and it's you can't get anything done. The internet is totally different over there. If I lived there, I'd be able to use all their services, but I couldn't correspond the way I normally did. When we were in Shenzhen, Kane and I were down there, and we hopped on the internet, and all of a sudden everything was really fast, and we were connecting to everything: Facebook, Google, whatever, anything you want. Everything was connecting, and I was like, what's going on here? Why are we on the internet? Are we in trouble? What's going on? And then the next thing, someone turns around and goes, no, we've got a direct pipe from Hong Kong. And I was like, is that legal? And they were like, no, but China's kind of leaving us alone because we're their little pet experiment here in Shenzhen. So hopefully that'll work out and go in the other direction. But we did experience it, and it's terrible. Like, it's not the internet anymore. I don't even know what it is, but it's not the internet. Yeah.
It's a balkanized internet.
Shall we talk more about censorship here? We've got the Reddit article right now. The misfits of Reddit aren't leaving. I don't even know about this.
Imagine that, a forum filled with people that are questionably productive.
So this entire thing is coming up because Reddit, of course, they have, it's no longer Alexis Ohanian's little project. He's sold to Condé Nast. They've got new CEOs. They've got stuff. They've got bottom lines. And, they need to make profit. So there's all that going on. And then there's a lot of stuff on the website that's, it used to be a haven for free speech. You could come here and, free speech. And then people go there and they say anything. But I think the problem is that it's becoming too much like 4chan or 8chan, and then that's making it difficult for them to get investors and difficult for the investors they already have to stay behind their own product and being like, what's going on here? So they started banning subreddits. And they said they're going to crack down. They're not cracking down on freedom of speech, they say. They're cracking down on behavior and harassment. So the first thing that they banned, of course, was fat people hate. And that one's gone. And, of course, there's a million, new ones. Fat people hate 1 and fat people hate 2 and all these little other subreddits that are popping up in response. And that's going to happen. And then, several others have been banned that, I don't know, they only named that one for some reason. That one had 150,000 subscribers. If you guys watch Boogie...
I think there were quite a bit more than that banned.
Yeah, probably were. If you guys watch Boogie 2988, you'll see that he is not entirely for it because he believes in free speech. And I think we need to actually stand back first and talk about what free speech is, because free speech does not mean that you can run into a bank and scream, "I'm going to kill everybody, give me all your money," and then be like, "Just kidding, everybody." That's not what free speech means. It does not mean that you can be an asshole. It does not mean that you can run around doing anything you want. Free speech stops when it becomes a danger to others, when it hurts others, when it we've got the whole I'm offended
threatens
thing.
Others.
Yeah, mainly when you're threatening others, threatening and harassing. There's a fine line between harassing and joking, I think, and that's where we're gonna have. It's gonna be a gray area, but free speech does not mean that you can say anything you want. That's not what it means. It means that
I think
you should be safe voicing your opinions.
These types of forums are generally much more productive when everybody is bound together by a unifying purpose. And what happens often when a forum like Reddit sort of grows and becomes successful is that the purpose binding the users together becomes like, let's stick it to the man, or let's do something or other, or I don't like this group of people, this other group of people is better. And so their productivity and their binding cause basically turns into subterfuge and to try to create trouble for other users. But it's completely silly. It's completely ridiculous. It totally doesn't need to be that way. I mean, it's like the Mr. Rogers thing. It's like, think before you post. Are you being the person that Mr. Rogers would want you to be? That's sort of the thing.
It's here's the one, the lady that everyone is hating on right now. There she is. Da-na-na-na-na-na. So that's Ellen Powell, and there's so much hate for her right now going on Reddit.
She's the CEO of Reddit.
Yeah. It's
well, she sued her former employer for discrimination or something, but she lost the case, and so everybody's like, "Let's talk about that on Reddit," and Reddit is like, "Let's not talk about that. Let's turn that off," which I think is totally their prerogative. They own it and they run it. And Something Awful, the forums, Something Awful. I've always been impressed because in order to be a member of the Something Awful forums, it's like $5 a month or whatever in order to be a Something Awful goon, and just by doing that, it really keeps the rabble out. There are professional trolls and there are people that are paying the $5 a month, but everybody that's there is serious. They have a purpose, and the purpose is not to troll some other group of people. It's to actually get some stuff done. And I think that on Reddit, there are so many talented people, and there are so many people that can do so many amazing productive things, that the trolls will end up miring those people down toward unproductive ends, and that's the real tragedy. It's that, we as a group can come together and do some really amazing things together, but whenever we start to build something that's really amazing, the trolls get their jollies from sort of disrupting that and doing some weird stuff and things like that. So I don't blame the people that own Reddit for wanting to shape Reddit into something other than just a forum, to turn it into some sort of really awesome, productive environment, because the smaller esoteric subreddits are amazing. Like, if you need really good information on some very esoteric topic, the subreddits for that they're incredible. It's like short, concise information. Everything is really well organized. There's really good responses. But as the subreddits get more popular, you don't need to look any further than /r/technology for this. That used to be one of the main subreddits, and now it's not, because it had its fair share of drama, and the Reddit admins were like, all right, screw it. We're not gonna pin technology anymore because that house is rancid and filled with terribleness. And so they killed it with fire, and I don't blame them.
We do see some of this to some extent on our forums, where we're way smaller, but we've got 95% of the people on there are just amazing, smart, helpful, and then 5% on there really enjoy disrupting all that. And it turns into a thing where like those 5% who maybe they're just young, maybe they're going to grow up soon and be like, I'm done messing with things and done bothering things. Now I'm going to be a mindful contributor. But there's just very small percentage. It turns it into kind of chaotic mud, if you will. And then everyone else shows up, and then we get topics that say things like, what are we going to do to return to our former glory? And I'm like, well, 95% of you are awesome. That's just the way it is. 95% of you are very awesome. We've got a few very active members, and, we may end up taking action to get rid of them because I'm not all about free speech on our website. I'm about having a constructive, good community. And it's, I'm about free speech
with a purpose other than trolling.
Yeah, I'm about free speech in the original definition of free speech. But, it's also, I think, a good idea to shape a community into something that you want it to be, because on the internet, each community is its own thing. And if you don't like our site, you can go to 4chan. That's totally fine. There's a home for you on 4chan. And 4chan thrives on that sort of nonsense. That's why it exists. Our site doesn't thrive like that. It's a different site. And Reddit, it can thrive on chaos, but it was kind of murking it up. Murking the waters, I don't know. Some word that's murky-mucky. That's what was happening. So I'm not going to fully defend Reddit because I think that they're doing most of it for their bottom line and not because they care about, they might care about, harassing others and stuff, but I still think it all comes down to the bottom line. I think that's the main thing. They're looking at this being like it's going to make it very hard for us to make money with this sort of nonsense on the website. So they're getting rid of, harassing stuff, anti-feminist stuff, so I don't know if I necessarily agree with the subreddits they've taken down, but I kind of do agree that it is their website, and if they want to, they're allowed to censor, they're allowed to change things. It's their own site, guys. It's theirs. It's not yours. It's their servers. If you don't like it, don't buy gold. So.
Yeah, it's like you guys can go somewhere else or whatever. It'll be fine. But that's the thing that is exciting about having a forum is that if you can keep everybody organized and focused, it can become a really powerful force for change. I mean, look at, before there were forums, there were mailing lists. And born out of the functionality of mailing lists is the entire open source enterprise. Without good mailing lists and good communication and the ability to sort of weed out the trolls and focus on awesome, productive content, then open source would not exist. Open source, I mean, it's the bazaar of, software development where it's not super organized and it's not, super... top-down management. And the forum is like that in a lot of respects. And so definitely any changes that can marshal that force for the greater good is sort of a neat thing to see.
All right, I think we're ready to move on and talk about some other things. I do kind of want your opinion on all this. Let us know what you think. Do you think that anyone should be able to say anything on the internet?
Oh, I'm sure they'll let us know. I don't think that's an issue.
Why do I even ask? I'm going to get 1 million PMs, and there's going to be all kinds of messages, and there's no more drama, guys. We're going to try to cut down on the drama. That's the worst part about anything. So,
your opinion is noted. Thank you.
Whether we'll regard it or not, it's noted. All right, let's take a look at this net neutrality business. So, all the basic ISPs and stuff, they're all basic. All the ISPs have been saying like, hey, let's not do this net neutrality thing. Let's wait. Let's hold off. And you know what? What was it? Which court
FCC
was it?
said no.
It was the FCC and then court. There we go. I forget which court it was. The U.S. Court of Appeals said no. It's going to go into effect like now, and then we can figure it out as we go. So. That's kind of cool. It's pretty much starting now. And the only thing in there that's not really mentioned, they packet prioritization, that sort of thing, not allowed. Fast lanes, not allowed. They still did not give us specific verbiage that has anything to do with the data bandwidth caps. I'm all over the place today. I think I only got 2 hours of sleep last night. So data bandwidth caps, they haven't really specifically mentioned that, but it is stronger, verbiage than what we've seen before. So that's kind of cool. And it's time for a fight. Don't think that AT&T and Verizon and Comcast are just going to go away. They're going to be freaking fighting a lot. It'll be fun.
if there are any network engineers that work on Netflix stuff in the audience watching, here's what you need to do. You need to go to your upper level management, your mid level manager, the CEO, whoever you have access to on the management team, and say, hey, the net neutrality rules are in effect. They're totally happening now. Why don't we stop paying Comcast and see what happens? Because the second you do that, this is the second that Comcast sends all your traffic to dev null, is the second that you can sue Comcast to the point that they just sign over the title to their company and you win. So that should be interesting. Netflix taking over Comcast. That will be awesome. This is also not really surprising, because the court already looked at this and told the FCC, it's like, you have the power to reclassify as Title II. Just do that, and then you can do anything you want as far as net neutrality goes. And so, in a way, this has already gone through the American court system with regard to net neutrality. So this, like, even bringing it up in court was just a stall tactic. I mean, unless they had some sort of new, really novel defense or something that hadn't been considered before, this was a really dumb thing to do, to even try to do any kind of court maneuvering or court whatever with the things for the FCC, because it's already been through the court twice, once for Verizon and once for Comcast, because both of those guys are doing shenanigans. So the FCC finally reclassified, which I didn't think would ever happen, and now they're reclassified, and then they're like, we need to delay. But that also means the shenanigans that we saw with these guys playing with Netflix traffic, and also to a lesser extent YouTube traffic, it should be actionable in a legal sense if Netflix wants to take action. And so anybody that's watching from Netflix, you need to make your executive overlords aware of this, so that we can watch the Schadenfreude. It'll be a lot of fun.
All right, so I just mentioned that we're going to see more court cases. Well, check this out. There's already a budget bill. Some Republicans got together, and this is great. $20.2 billion budget bill, and if this goes through, this bill would prohibit the FCC from implementing the new rules until they go through a whole series of court challenges. That's great. It's just what we wanted.
It's already happened.
Yeah, it's already. But this bill's, they're going to try. They're trying to take back the power. They're trying to say that the FCC didn't have the right to do this in the first place, and they're going to try to jump in as the Congress and be like, hey, what's going on? So Hal Rogers is behind this from Kentucky. Let's see here. Mining is one of his big. I love this plugin, guys. By the way, you hover over their name and it brings up all the funding. It's called Greenhouse, and it's opensecrets.org. Just go ahead and get that whenever you hover over their name. Let me pull this back over a little bit. All right, there we go. Yeah. So whenever you hover over the name there, you see, oh, check that out. There's Hal Rogers, and yeah, getting all kinds of money from lobbyists and air transport. So anyway,
you know what was amazing about Taipei? The internet was ungodly fast, and we were at that tea house in the middle of the woods, 5 miles from civilization, maybe more, 5 miles from the next nearest structure, let's say. And the 4G internet was blazing fast. I was pulling about 40 megabit from my cell phone, and they also had wired Ethernet there that you could do on the Wi-Fi. And so again, the American companies belly aching about this. The level of greed here is over 9,000. The level of greed is too damn high. This is crazy. If they can do it in Taipei, we can do it here. There's no reason.
Especially
their jungles are filled with terrible, terrible snakes. So I mean, come on.
I didn't see any snakes, but I think we might have heard some. We did hear some monkeys as well, little macaques or macaws, or no, macaws are birds. Macaques, I don't know. Anyway.
I saw hot dog-sized flying hornets that carry tarantulas off, which in my book, that's even worse. But it was literally hot dog-sized wasps, and they were like, "Let me carry off this piece of fruit." And talking to one of the people there, they were like, "Oh yeah, they sting tarantulas and then carry the tarantulas back to their nest and hatch their young in the tarantulas." And it's like, great.
Ridley Scott probably took his I think he did take his. No, maybe not. One of the things that was interesting over there, the bottleneck for everywhere that we went, except for some parts of remote China, but even in China, the internet was fast, even if you couldn't access everything, but we could access our FTP. The entire time we were there, every single place that we stayed, the bottleneck was America. We were trying to send things back via FTP to America. Every single time, America was the bottleneck. That's kind of scary. It's also kind of scary that I got here and yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's so the machines that we have in the data center, the data center's got 10 gig connection probably at least to our rack, and pushing stuff to the data center, I have never seen that fast. Even from like university connection in America, it's like, let me push this huge block of data from this university connection to this server in the data center. It's like, oh look, it's moving a gigabit per second. Woo! And then over in Taiwan, it's like, let me just do this test real quick. And it's like, wow, this is moving at like 5.5 gigabit. This is insane. And that's across the ocean versus sharing the same landmass. What does that tell you about America's internet infrastructure? This is unacceptable, America. We need to get off. We need to marshal the forum. Maybe we can turn all that vitriol and hate in the forum into something that runs fiber optics everywhere.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Whenever you see like that much energy devoted to something so frivolous and silly, it's like, well, you've got all this energy and all this passion, and it's turning into angst and fighting on the internet and name calling and stupidity like that. Why don't we use this to, start a revolution or something, with the internet? I'm talking about like, government don't show up at my house. I'm not trying to start a fist fight gun, attack the Washington Monument type thing. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just talking about like revolution of ideas and a revolution of internet speed. Oh, now Comcast is going to attack me. I can't say anything. Someone's going to kick down the door, and then it's going to be a ninja fight to the death for about 4 seconds until I take them out. Yeah. Anyway, let's see what else here is on the list today to talk about. We just talked about. Oh yeah, that's that. All right, next up, NSA spying. I'll make this a quick mention because I think if you're in the tech sector, you already know about this. Well, it seems like it's costed about $35 billion for the U.S. tech sector. $35 billion. So, I mean, they're spending more than that on this. We mention this
only just because it's a mainstream news article that's talking about how other countries are not going to buy their technology from America. And we mention it only because, yeah, that's totally going to happen if it hasn't already happened. Technologies that are open source or are well documented are going to take over everywhere but America, probably. Like, however our companies figure out how to do stuff, or how think tanks figure out how to do it, it's going to probably happen in open source products rather than proprietary products, because state subterfuge in the form of technology is going to be a real problem. So the original report came out, and it was like, this is probably going to cost American companies $35 billion. Now, this updated article is saying $35 billion is probably a drop in the bucket in terms of sales not going to American companies, because foreign countries just do not trust American companies to deliver a piece of technology that is not riddled with backdoors and or subterfuge. But this is a mainstream article in Time, as opposed to like the super technical articles or whatever. And so that this is making it out to the rest of the world. It's food for thought for you guys.
I just scrolled down a little bit as you were saying that this is a mainstream article in Time, and the next mainstream article in Time is Britney Spears' dream job is nannying for Brad and Angelina.
I rest my case.
I don't. We need. Is that
Brangelina?
Yeah. I'm just gonna. I don't. Let's talk about hardware before my head explodes. I didn't even mean. I've been so nice to be away from celebrity culture. Oh God. All right. I'm moving to Denmark. Do they have celebrities there? I don't know. Where do they not have celebrities? All right, so let's talk about the AMD 300 series for just a minute. Their pricing has been leaked, or maybe it's been confirmed. That's what a pricing confirmed, according to WCCF. Okay, so here we go. 390X, 8 gigabyte, $389. How do they do that? That's pretty ridiculously inexpensive. There's always a but.
Is the 390X the Fury X? We don't know.
So
we don't think so.
Here's a picture of the Fury, by the way, and it's got two 8-pin power connectors. This thing is going to be pretty wild. It's smaller because the new RAM is smaller, but it's not going to be that much faster than the current stuff. But I don't know. I can't say anything. Just reports I'm hearing are all over the place. But there it is. There's the water block. We've got the really interesting carbon fiber look to it. I pretty much have no comments, just a lot of hopes. Hope it's all right. Hope it's good. Hope it's not too hot. Hope that's not too loud. And I wish it didn't take up so much space. I'm not so much into the water cooling thing. I wish there was a regular version, but Maybe there will be. I'd rather have.
There might be.
I'd rather
maybe
have
that's the enthusiast version. We don't know.
Yeah, I'd rather have a a third-party cooling solution from some company. MSI or Asus or Sapphire, probably one of those guys. I'd rather have their third-party cooling solution with the fancy fans and heat pipes and stuff. But we'll see what comes out. All right, what's next?
Well, we did see that Corsair is partnering with MSI to do bundled water-cooled graphics cards, and so maybe that'll be a part of the thing.
Who knows? All right, let's talk about some I guess more differenter hardware. Yes, this is more differenter. How about some brain implants and bionic limbs and combat exoskeletons? So this is what DARPA is really looking into, and this article goes on, and it's not all science. It's just a lot of conjecture and back and forth. But I guess we could kind of do the same thing, but I want to do it on our own terms. So they're saying that in the next 20 years, this stuff is going to happen. That's just kind of what they're saying. And Jeffrey Ling, he's one of the guys working on this stuff. He's a neuroscientist, also I think a colonel in the Army, but he's working on some of these things. And he's just like, guys, it's going to happen. We're going to have brain implants. We're going to be able to upload our brains to the cloud, as it were. So he's saying that 20 to 30 years, possibly a little longer than that. But DARPA's really working on these things, and they could be out sooner or later. So I guess we're going to have Deus Ex before. I guess around the same time the movie came, or the same time the game was set, right? What was the game? The first one was 2027, I forget. Someone in the comments correct me and scold me for forgetting the setting for the original Deus Ex, the time setting, that is. But I don't know. Would you want brain implants or anything like that? Right now, the brain implants that they already have some things that can correct some mental illnesses or some palsies, some things like that. They're working on those things first, but if they're able to do that and they're able to influence the brain in those ways, they could maybe do other things. They could maybe implant memories like Total Recall. That'd be fun. That'd be kind of cool. We could go buy a trip to Mars. That'd be a good memory. We could go buy some.
It's not a real trip to Mars.
It felt real when I remembered it. So
there were some psychology experiments that were very dark and very disturbing, where they were doing brain implants with rhesus monkeys, and this was many years ago. But it was they wired up. They did a bunch of different things, but one of the things that stands out in my mind is they wired up the monkeys' pleasure centers so that they could push a button, and the monkeys would have really intense, pleasurable feelings or whatever, and the monkeys just stopped doing anything but that. I mean, they're basically wasting away and starving because they lost the motivation to eat. So that's probably what would happen to us. It's probably going to end badly.
That'd be fun to watch anyway. There's lots of artificial intelligence stuff to talk about. First off, I don't know, make a hell of a movie. Let's check out this robot. We're going back to another Dutch designer. This will be a quick mention, but they've developed a robot that can print a bridge. It can print a bridge while it's on the bridge. So you just get this giant robot, and it's printing a metal bridge, mind you, and it also moves by printing its own tracks. So that's pretty. This is a visualization.
Yay.
But yeah, this is essentially how it's going to work. Have a couple of these out there printing bridges.
I'm sure I saw something like this in one of the Iron Man movies.
I mean, he's already working on this technology. It technically works. He can do it. He can print, bridges. It will work. He's just, getting the finalized versions. But he decided to print a bridge, and his name is Joris Layman, or I didn't want to say his name because I knew I would ruin it, but he wanted to print a bridge just because that's something that, hey, we can show something useful, we can show something complicated, we can show something that's difficult, and it'll be just as strong as any current bridge we have for whatever size it is. It'll be a walking bridge at first, but implications on this are pretty interesting as well. We could take this technology, move forward, and the next thing you know, we have robots building their own tracks. And the tracks are not just tracks that go on the ground. They're tracks that can go in any direction. They can build tracks that allow them to go vertically, horizontally, whatever. They can build tracks in any direction they want. So they can move themselves around building these tracks. And let's fast forward maybe 10 years, right? So now we've got cities going up quickly with several of these robots on each sides, like building their own tracks, moving up the side of a building. and building a nice steel building, then, you just have to have some people come in and lay the glass or whatever. We can have, at the same time, you look over across the bay and there's 3 bridges being built, all by these type of robots. So, yeah, it's a pretty interesting time to be alive. Next up, Elon Musk.
I think this is going to revolutionize everything because it's just... The guy has the right idea, and that is... The best quote here is, robots tend to assume that the universe is made of absolutes, even though it's not true. So we need to program them to have real-time feedback loops and to adapt in real time without even being told to. This guy gets it. Cheap robotics depends on really amazing software with the most terrible, cheap, crappy hardware imaginable. And then that's when
that's the way Google does it.
Just when everything takes over the world.
Yes,
exactly.
That's exactly how Google does it.
Yeah, it's going to be neat.
And then when Comcast whines and complains, they're not talking about cheap, crappy hardware. They're talking about Cisco high margin stuff. All right, Elon Musk. He has he's I guess asked the FCC if he can set up a global satellite system for worldwide internet. So he's doing that. Google gave him some money, and could be interesting. We'll have some other companies, I think, that are fighting for this as well. Does it say here? Richard Branson with Virgin. He wants to set up OneWeb, which will be another satellite-based thing. So that could be the next thing. We've got, Hughes and DirectTV that are okay. I'm not sure how much different this is going to be, but it'll probably be a larger array of devices and probably faster speeds. The ping is still going to be a thing, but, as long as if you're not playing video games, the sustained up and down, if it's good enough, could be okay for file transfers and that sort of thing.
I can't find confirmation, but he's actually got 2 versions of this. And so one version uses geosynchronous satellites. Geosynchronous satellites are quite far away from Earth compared to, say, the International Space Station. And geosynchronous means that the satellites, basically you launch the satellite is far away from Earth, but the satellite follows Earth all the way around. And so what satellite you're looking at does not change. If we're talking about satellites that use a low Earth orbit, those are much closer to the Earth, and that will have a much better situation in terms of ping. Like the International Space Station is much closer to Earth than satellites that are in geosynchronous orbit. And there are apparently 2 versions of this plan, one that involves geosynchronous and one that does not. And I have seen it reported that this is going to be a geosynchronous network, which that would make me sad, because we have that with Dish Network, I think, has their satellite internet and is god awful. And then I think the Iridium was another one that was geosynchronous, but it didn't really work out. But if this is going to be near Earth orbit or low Earth orbit satellites, and that means the satellite that's in the sky is going to change constantly, so they have to be able to hand off from one satellite to another, and that may be a big deal. But if they do that, then this could actually be amazing.
We'll have to wait and see. I hope they do the latter. I don't know. Next up, this is a very, very interesting breakthrough. So WIS, is that how you say it? WYSS, or is it Weiss University? And Harvard University are working in a lab north of London on essentially organ chips, if that makes any sense. Let's see if I can try to explain this a little better. So what they're doing is, instead of using animals to test new products that, like for liver or something like that, they're taking real human liver cells and putting them into a device like the one on the screen here, and it's controlled by microchips, and they are able to test out whatever treatments or whatever they want. They can test it out here. They can test out new drugs or who knows what. So it'd be really, really handy for clinical trials, and they're working on building, I guess, little samples of all of our different organs. So they're organ chips. That's how it is. Have you ever had a liver chip? I wonder how that would taste. Delicious liver chips. Kind of like a crunchy version of foie gras, I guess. Too meaty for me. That's
salt, vinegar, and liver.
Doesn't get any liver than that. All right. Thought vectors. We've probably
the Punisher strikes again.
We've probably gone long, but I guess we could do a quick mention of thought vectors, because it is interesting, and it also goes into the whole artificial intelligence stuff that we were just talking to. So right now, a computer, when you talk to it, it responds in a very linear fashion. It responds kind of like a dog. It knows when you say a certain thing to go and get this information, but it doesn't know how to piece it together like a human does. It doesn't have it doesn't have relationships and that sort of thing. Like it's not able to take the word and relate it to all these different circumstances, or maybe, like when you say one word, you could mean it in any different number of ways depending on how you're saying it, what the sentence structure is, but computers can't really do that. Right now, they're working on a new thing, Professor Jeffrey Hinton. So he's working on something called a thought vector, and it just allows the computer to put together these vectors of information and come up with something that's more like human thought. And this is just something that they're just starting to talk about, so it's in the infancy. But if they, move forward with this, and if it actually works, we'll be able to produce artificial intelligence that has a more organic thought process. And that could be a really nuanced, advanced form of artificial intelligence, something that's been very difficult with traditional methods of computing. It's kind of an interesting idea, creating these thought vectors. This article doesn't really go into everything that's into all the details of thought vectors. It just kind of throws it out there. But interesting.
I read this and thought of the article that we had last week where an AI came up with a solution for a biological process based on experimental data that had been gathered by scientists for the last 100 years. And nobody had come up with an explanation for the process. They just knew that it happened, and they had tons and tons of experiments where they were trying to figure out exactly what the process was. And the computer, it's not exactly artificial intelligence, but the computer searched through the problem set to find those kind of solutions. This kind of thought vector approach with those kinds of scientific data sets could be really huge in terms of uncovering sort of the next step in the next iteration for scientific theories. It's something really interesting, and I'm glad that money is being spent on that.
Let's talk about some games, shall we? I'm in the mood to talk about. I need to play some games. I haven't played a game in a while, but let's just talk about them instead of playing.
Well, it is Steam sale territory.
Yeah, well, I can't find much that I wanted. I picked up one game so far in the Steam sale, and that was the Sonic the Hedgehog kart racing game. Because I already have every other game that I want.
Is actually on sale.
I grabbed it on Good Old Games. So actually, I didn't grab it on Good Old Games, but I did grab it on Good Old Games, kind of. So I ended up with an extra copy of it. So I have it on Good Old Games. But the Good Old Games sale is even better. And if you guys have not played around with the Good Old Games Galaxy yet, or the GOG Galaxy, it's awesome. Go ahead and check it out and get into Good Old Games. We actually have an affiliate link for that, so I'll put that in the description. And it's weird. We get like a penny if you sign up. It's literally like a penny. But, whatever. It's something.
If you guys do that, I'll be able to go to Computex next year again, which is an amazing, magical experience. So,
all right, let's talk about these games here. So, Unreal Engine 4.8 has been released, and there's comprehensive support for all kinds of different things. Now, the thing that really blew me away with the Unreal Engine is the way that they are rendering trees, forests, and grass. Very organic. If I read this correctly, it looks like you can build forests and allow them to grow and kind of organically become something bigger than what you've put in the game. So that's pretty crazy. In the latest update, they're talking about VR quite a bit. They've got Valve's Steam VR system supported. They've got the newest Oculus SDK supported. This should be supporting the open VR stuff too, because when we were talking to some of the guys at Computex, I'm like, hey, does your stuff support open VR? Does it support this type of VR? Does it support Valve's thing? And the guy was like, man, this is like asking what kind of monitor I have. It's not quite the same, but it's in the future, it's all going to be like, oh, this game is only compatible with Dell monitors. We're sorry. It's that he said it's going to be akin to that in the future. So that was kind of cool, and that was coming from someone who's kind of close to the Oculus dev. Anyway, Unreal Engine looks amazing. I'm thinking if we make a game, we should maybe use this. I don't know. Unity is also doing some cool things too, but I kind of like them both. I don't know. If we make a game,
it's cross-platform and
that's
and
the
Valve's
other thing.
Involvement. So these are good things.
Yep, that's the other thing. It does work on Linux, and yeah. So there's that. I opened that one twice. Oculus Home has been revealed, and Valve's VR stuff has gone crazy too. So there's a lot of like in-home. This is something I didn't even put in the article, but there's not much to talk about. But this is really close by where we are. So I'm wondering if anyone has an in over at Valve, because I really want to go see the Steam VR room scale VR thing. It's the reporter here Sam Makievek or whatever, from Ars Technica. He said that this technology was like having IMAX in your house. And I want to know exactly what they're doing over there. They wouldn't let him take any pictures or anything like that. But I really want to go over there and see. So does anyone know anybody at Valve? Should I just email Gabe and be like, hey, Gabe, I'm down the street. Can you mind if I come by? I'll bring you a, what is he like? I don't know. A sarsaparilla. I'll bring you a sarsaparilla with real birch oil. Is that what works with him? I don't know.
There was Sunset Sarsaparilla, but that's the wrong company, so that's probably not a good idea. What was in Half-Life?
I don't remember. Oh no. You know what? We're getting so much hate mail this time because people are going to yell at us for forgetting that, and they're going to yell at me personally for forgetting the start date of Deus Ex, unless I said it correctly, 2027, 2026, 2027. Yeah, I think so. Maybe I'm correct. I don't know. Probably not. Yeah.
Maybe we're just trolling. You ever think about that? We're just doing this for a laugh.
we never troll. So this last thing I want to mention here. This is kind of something that could have been in the hardware, but it's also something that's in the game, the gaming area. But WWCF Tech has reported, this was shared on our website, has reported that DirectX 12 is
the ultimate rumor mill.
Yeah, this really is. They're saying it's DirectX 12, or DirectX 12 is DirectX 11 with Mantle integrated, and they're getting this information from people who are working with it right now, like some of the devs. And they're saying that it's a direct copy-paste of Mantle, but that's all just hearsay at this point, and I don't think I totally believe that. Because
is that what AMD intended, though? We don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I think Vulkan is going to be the future, because Vulkan's going to be cross-platform, and it's going to be pretty much Mantle with some extra stuff added on, some physics and some other things added onto it. A more complete package, and it will be developed by Valve as well. Or Valve's going to be helping develop it, but yeah, I think Vulkan's going to be the one to watch. DirectX 12, I'm okay to abandon it as soon as Vulkan comes out, and let's hope that Valve is able to push developers to use Vulkan. And DirectX 12 is cool too. I mean, we saw some pretty amazing things with ray tracing and stuff at NVIDIA's booth. Thanks Tom for showing us that stuff. So yeah. Anyway,
that was amazing.
It was pretty freaking amazing.
We got a video coming out on that? I think we do, don't we?
Yeah, we got to do a voiceover, I think. The only video we have left right now is Lee and Lee and NVIDIA.